Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's intermission time.
All right, Simon, I think I'm going to run this one. So, look, we're going to keep it pretty brief, but as you are probably aware, Paramount got sold during the week. There's been a lot of conversations for the last, I don't know, like year, 2 years, about when Paramount's going to get sold, who's it going to get sold to. In the last few months, Skydance, which is a company that's been producing a lot of its big IP-driven films the last couple of years, it's looked like the front runner. They had a deal coming in place, and then it all fell apart at the last minute. Didn't happen. Came back to the table the other day, and they're like, yep, let's do it. A few $1 billion is going to trade hands. It's a good news story for, the 2 or 3 wealthy people who got large amounts of money invested in this. But outside of that, it's a whole bunch of people who are probably fairly indifferent to what Paramount has to offer these days. It has been a studio which has been badly handled, mismanaged, and has just a whole bunch of assets which people should love a little bit more than they do. So for the purposes of today's intermission, this is the question that I level to you, Simon Foster.
Yes, sir.
Paramount's got so many riches in terms of IP, in terms of like interesting platforms and opportunities that have just been not taken advantage of at all for years and years. What would you do if given the keys to the castle at Paramount? Each of us are going to choose 3 different things, and we're going to throw them at each other one at a time. You go first.
2 words. Popeye. Actually, that's 1 word. Popeye was a movie that they tried to launch into a series back in the day with Robin Williams and the late and wonderful Shelley Duvall. God bless her and God rest her soul. She passed away this week. I think there's an opportunity there for Popeye, which remains one of the very few pop culture icons not to have a successful franchise or event pick or TV series built around him and the people of Popeye's world. I think there's room for a PCU, Popeye Cinematic Universe. Let's bring it on. I'm leading with Popeye. That's what you can expect from me in this intermission, Dan.
Oh, God, I really hope that it gets better for the second and third options you got here. Popeye, look, I mean, I'm fond of Popeye. I think it occupies an interesting cultural space. I remember sitting at the dinner table with my probably then slightly over 2-year-old child and wife, and my wife's like, come on, eat your spinach, be like Popeye. And I'm thinking, like, who's going to remember who Popeye is at this point? It's 2024.
Oh, spinach.
Come on.
I know.
Yeah. But anyway, look, Popeye, I'm not sure about a cinematic universe. How about we try one film that works with Popeye and then see how we go with that?
We'll see. All right. God bless Shelley Duvall. That was a sad loss during the week. But anyway, what's your first one?
My first one is MTV. So Paramount have had MTV for, since there was MTV.
Yes.
MTV's been really badly mismanaged. I think that there was an opportunity in the we'll say the early 2000s. That's kind of when it lost its cultural relevance. If you remember the late 90s going to the early 2000s, you had in the late 90s the rise of nu metal. So it was a lot of very angry, like man-orientated bands like Tool, and like all of them were just awful, but that's kind of what MTV lent into. Okay, but straight off the back of that became the rise of the boy bands. And so they went crazy for the boy bands. There was also acts like, remember Britney Spears? Like, she was around.
I love Britney Spears.
You had acts like that, and that's just the last gasp of relevance for MTV. Yeah. And MTV, for all the cool cachet that we kind of attributed it to from the 80s, the reality is that the people watching MTV were always like 10 to 14-year-olds. So the idea that 10 to 14-year-olds in 2000 were watching a lot of these boy bands and, just reveling over that, that all makes sense. That's where the relevancy was. Okay, but then after that, they started pivoting towards doing a lot of scripted content. And as that was happening, that was the rise of YouTube and user-generated content and social media. And MTV just went further and further into what was scripted comedies like Awkward and Faking It, and I'm sure there's a bunch of others. There was a Teen Wolf TV series that they did. There was a bunch of that sort of programming, a whole bunch of reality shows like Teen Mums. I think it was like 15 variants on Teen Mums.
So how do we save it? What are you preparing? What are you suggesting?
What we need to do is think about MTV as a brand, and you need to. There's going to be no one bullet that gets MTV back. Okay. First of all, music videos aren't really what they were back in the early 2000s. Like, music videos are still kind of being made, but not really quite. And these days, they operate more now as like just wallpaper on your Spotify or Apple Music, and it's like an 8-second video that repeats. Okay, but I think maybe there is an opportunity to bring a couple of music videos back, have a couple of shows based around live performance, and really lean back into music in a big way. You do. All right. You have some TV channels which are about user-generated content and engagement with people creating their own content, and bring that to the TV screen, and just get creative and find ways to talk to the kids and integrate them into an MTV brand. Okay, I'm just saying you need to work on the brand. I don't know I have actually the solution for it specifically just yet. But I know it's never going to be one thing. It's just tapping into a bunch of different things.
All right, so we've stumbled across, we've got a bit of a crossover here, because my second one I've titled MTV Unplugged Reborn. Now, the MTV Unplugged concept was getting... doing one-off concerts in the studio with the likes, most famously Nirvana, and people like Paul Simon and Alanis Morissette would come in. They'd have a couple of guitars and a pair of bongos, and they'd beat out, and they'd sort of smack out their big hits without all the huge concert paraphernalia that they usually do. And it was a hugely successful
Nirvana were
concert.
big with bongos.
But Nirvana love their bongos. But so my point here is that, what was my point? Oh, yes, Unplugged Reborn. I am going to recreate, and when I say I mean MTV, the Unplugged concept for the online generation. And we are going to use the MTV YouTube channel or the MTV Spotify channel and have specific paid user content with the biggest stars in the world doing Unplugged, but having it right into your smart TV or right into your laptop or personal device. I think I've solved the problem, and I don't want to go into this anymore. I'll not be taking any questions.
Sure. Okay, taken as is. Okay, well, that brings me, I guess, to number 2. Look, Paramount Plus, I think, let's get rid of it. I don't think Paramount Plus is necessarily getting the traction it needs, but I do think there's value for a paid platform for Paramount to maintain. What I would say is that Pluto TV, which we do get Pluto TV here in Australia, it operates
you love your Pluto.
It operates within 10 Play in Australia, and that's just garbage. It's a really bad experience and not really worth anyone's time. I'm currently loading up the Pluto TV, which you can find if you go to 10play.com.au and just go to their live TV section. They don't brand it as Pluto TV.
I love the Twilight Zone channel. I've been on that for a lot.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Like, there's just a whole bunch of niche channels which I think service the audience in really interesting, sort of unique ways. And I'm just trying to avoid noise coming through the camera now as I load up the site. But right now, there's channels based on... This is the Australian one. So you got the main broadcast channels, but then there's the South Park channel. There's a channel that plays nothing but Christmas movies in July. There's the Bondi Rescue channel, Best of MTV. At the moment, they're just playing Ed Sheeran clips for the next 4 hours. Geordie Shore has a channel, a bunch of kids channels based around things like Paw Patrol and Avatar: The Last Airbender, the lesser of the Avatars. There's a Nicktoons cartoon channel. There's MTV Reality Dating, a bunch of things. There's what is there? There's a Becca channel playing nothing but the Ted Danson sitcom Becca. There's a Brady Bunch channel, I Love Lucy, Happy Days. You mentioned there's a Twilight Zone channel, which I'm sure is still there. There's a Gunsmoke channel, Baywatch, nothing but 24/7 Baywatch, Beverly Hills 90210, Bold and the Beautiful. Look, there's just all these different theme channels. And that kind of sounds okay, but there's only like about 40, 50 channels here on the Australian Pluto. In the US, you load it up, it's about 250 channels of this kind of stuff just repeated over and over again. The movie channels, they've got about 9 or 10 movie channels, and I guarantee of those channels, you'll always find at least 4 movies that you want to watch. Okay? And like, there's good movies as part of that library. Netflix. It's a really good experience. It drives a fairly good, decent bit of viewership on there on a regular basis. But the problem with it is that it's mostly these linear channels as the standalone app in the US. But then there's also the opportunity to watch things on demand. And it's a really clunky interface to get to the on-demand stuff. I would redesign Pluto TV. I would make it very easy to find the on-demand content. I would make it as frictionless as possible to get to the linear channels, because that's how linear works. But then also, I would have a paid upsell through the app, which allows you to get a few premium drama shows, and you'd have a scaled-down Paramount Plus operating through Pluto TV.
Wow, that is a radical concept, and just the kind of thinking that Hollywood needs to bring Paramount into the new century.
Yeah, sure.
Which happened 25 years ago, but that's okay. That's good. That is very interesting. I like that. I am going to go back very far with my third and final suggestion. Many of you kids out there will not know the brand Republic Pictures. It was an American film studio that operated from 1935 to 1967, all out of LA, all out of Hollywood. They had this terrific opening banner of an eagle perched atop a mountain peak, and it was a beautiful piece of Americana artwork. And they specialized in fairly low-budget action films with names like Spy Spatcher and The Perils of Neoka, and a whole lot of really cheap stunt work that was used over and over again in different films, but only shot once. They diversified into some bigger films. They did a version of Macbeth once. It never really took. They were always recognized as the B-movie studio, the B-movie offshoot of Paramount Pictures. I think that's a plus. I think Republic Pictures can be reborn as some kind of mid-tier action sci-fi genre brand that could give new young filmmakers a chance to show their vision and bring their wares to Hollywood, but on a budget. Republic Pictures, for me, is the untapped goldmine that exists within the Paramount Pictures vault, and to bring back the eagle on the mountaintop would do everyone a huge, huge favor. Republic Pictures Corporation, I won't be taking any questions.
This to me feels like my bold idea to save Warner Brothers, which is just to bring back their 1970s Warner Brothers logo before the movies.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's...
I'm not sure it's going to do the trick.
All right, what's your third one? Let's wrap up this intermission.
Yeah, okay. My final one is Mission Impossible. Sure, we've all loved those Tom Cruise movies, but Mission Impossible belongs as a TV series. I want to be able to flip on a new episode and see, the IMF team's gone to Moldova this week and gotten wrapped up in some sort of, mystery involving like a prince there who's had their hat stolen. Bring back the old school Mission Impossible. Let me have Adventures of the Week, and let me see, a new Jim Phelps going to, far off mysterious locales, all filmed in Toronto.
Who would you cast who would be the small screen Ethan Hunt?
Well, I wouldn't do Ethan Hunt, because to me, Ethan Hunt is a creature of the movies in the same way. Actually, you know what? You know what I would do, Simon?
What would you do, Dave?
Okay, now we're talking my love language here. Okay. Here's what I would do. The movies made a very disrespectful move in the very first Mission Impossible movie by having Jim Phelps as portrayed in a TV series by... Oh, no, I've just forgotten his name.
The guy from Flying High, yes, Peter Graves.
Yeah, or Airplane. Peter Graves. Yeah. Peter Graves replaced him, with John Voight, not the dentist, but the actor. Yep. Okay. And the twist of the first Mission Impossible film, sorry to spoil 1996's Mission Impossible for you all, 95, Jim Phelps turns out to be the villain at the end of the movie. I would open a TV series with Ethan Hunt, not played by Tom Cruise, but like maybe...
Tobey Maguire.
No, let's go Patrick Warburton. Okay.
Nice.
He turns out to be the villain in the first episode, only to have Jim Phelps and the team take over and actually...
Thereby appeasing the Jim Phelps fans who were upset by the first Mission Impossible film, welcoming them back into the franchise. Oh, God, this is why you're the brain of the outfit.
Brain and beauty. Folks, this has been this week's intermission. Great ideas all. Not sure about the Republic Pictures, but great ideas all. Folks, we're going to keep going with a segment we call What Else Have You Been Watching?